Have you noticed how amazing my skin's been looking lately? I've been using some incredible products from Caldera Lab, and they've been clinically proven to work. Caldera Lab creates high performance men's self care products by combining pharmaceutical grade science, nature's purest and most potent ingredients, and sustainable business practices. Caldera Lab recently released the regimen, and it's super easy to use. Every morning, use the Clean Slate Cleanser, followed by the base layer. Every night, use the Clean Slate Cleanser, followed by the Good Serum. Personally, I love using these products, especially the Good Serum, every night. It makes my skin feel hydrated before bed, and even better when I wake up in the morning. There's no risk in trying the regimen. Every purchase is backed by Caldera Lab's 100% money-back guarantee. Try it out for 60 days. If you don't love it, you'll get a 100% refund, no questions asked. So if you've noticed your skin is starting to show signs of aging, like wrinkles, fine lines, or uneven skin tone, I highly recommend you give them a try. To start your journey to healthier skin today, visit calderalab.com/Chael. Use the code Chael to save 20%. That's calderalab.com/Chael, or just click on the link below. My official prediction for Giga versus Kattar. Guys, hear me out on this. I'm taking Giga. I'll get right to the point. I won't bury the lead, but hear me out on this. I think Kattar's a better fighter. I think Giga is more mentally tough. I think Kattar can push equally as hard as Giga. Don't forget, it's a 5-round contest. Now, it is very hard to imagine, and will you guys agree with me here? It's very hard to imagine that either one of these guys gets finished. We've just seen both of these guys walk through fire too many times. We have seen these guys standing on broken glass and never slip too many times to believe that they could be finished. However, isn't it even harder to believe that either one of these guys can take the punishment that they're going to be given for a full 25 minutes? I mean, Kattar is a volume machine. Kattar is as close, volume-wise, to Max Holloway, without being Max Holloway, that you're going to find. Giga's mean. Everything, Giga will punch you in the mouth and hope your foot breaks. Like, everything he does is designed to damage his opponent, and Giga likes to be there. So I'm talking about a mental edge to Giga. I can't prove that. You can't prove. I will just tell you, I believe. And I believe this about Giga because of his willingness. I've been trying to tell you guys about him because I didn't want you to miss him. And you know what? Good for me. He came through the Contender Series. He pops into the UFC. You don't hear a whole bunch about Giga unless you're kind of behind the curtains. Then you're finding about this guy that's trying to get short notice fights. There was one time where Giga read on the internet that there was an opportunity at 145 pounds. He got in his car from California. He made one phone call. It didn't get answered. He left a voicemail and drove to Las Vegas. By the way, on weight. So Giga's not some huge guy, but it also speaks to the discipline that he has. And it speaks to his willingness, right? That inner burning fire to go out there and compete. Look, that's a mentally tough son of a bitch. There is no way around it. Giga wants the harder the match, the more interest he's going to have. He's one of these knuckleheads. If he could do 2 guys in one night, he's in. And a lot of guys say that, but very few of them really mean it. Giga would go and do it. And then I hear about these training stories from Giga. I mean, his teammates are his biggest fans. They say he lives at the gym. They call him that behind his back. They call him Mr. Gym because he's always there. So he's looking for opportunities, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease a lot. We in this sport will always take you at your word. If we think you're great and you say you're not ready, we will believe you. If we think you're pretty good, but you say you're the greatest, we will give you those opportunities. We absolutely will listen. So Giga did everything right, and I wanted to be part of that. I identified this guy, found this guy early. I thought his name was kind of cool. Then we had similar teammates. I wanted to be part of it, but now he's a main event fighter. So I'm inserting myself. Maybe I helped along the way. But I only wanted to do one thing, which is just to bring it to you guys, because I know you love guys like that. I know you love guys that are true competitors. They don't need a big carrot dangled in front of them. They don't go sign a contract and they want to talk about the contract that's already signed. They have honor. They do what they say they're going to do. These are the guys we liked, and that's why early on I wanted to bring you the story of Giga, but here he is in his second main event, taking on Kattar. Now, why do I say that Kattar's a better fighter than Giga? Well, it largely has to do with that magic wand that gets waved over you at birth. that is just the luck of the draw called DNA. Kattar is a fantastic athlete. Kattar has not only looked good, he's looked great in every single fight he's ever had, except the Max Holloway fight. But there was great things about that contest. I mean, Kattar found himself over his head. Kattar is lightning fast. So when it turned out that Max was even faster than Kattar, it was a surprise. Kattar has a huge output. He is throwing stuff at the wall nonstop. When Max came out and had more of an output than Kattar, the light shined very fondly on Max. I strongly disagree that a light dimmed on Kattar. We saw the difference between those two, which is why we did the fight in the first place. But you want to talk about heart, you want to talk about courage, you want to talk about a guy that in that fight, it's not what he wanted to show, that he could take a lot of punishment, but he did show that he could take a lot of punishment. That's why Kattar returns to a main event spot. He belongs there. He is a top 5 guy in the world. So you have this athleticism of Kattar taking on this mental will of Giga. Now, not for nothing, and please don't mishear me, it's not to say that Giga doesn't know the moves himself. Giga's very well-rounded. Giga's a little better with the kicks, and he's also a little bit better with the tricks. Being dynamic in fighting can be very helpful when you're in a game trying to keep your opponent guessing. Kattar brings incredible athleticism. He's got some reach and he knows how to use it. He's got some slips and some feints and some setups, and he's got some pretty good power. But when you're being dynamic, you're making the guy guess. And there's not a whole lot about Kattar that you have to guess. You could walk into any gym, go find 5 workout partners. They're all going to look a little bit like Kattar. They might not quite have that speed and that length, but it's going to be right hands, it's going to be left hands, it's going to be body shots, they're going to come upstairs, they'll slip in just enough wrestling. There's guys that can go out and do that. I don't know that you could say that about Giga. Giga's style is, again, dynamic. And it's very relevant because this is a game of guessing. And it's very hard for the audience to see. And I do not attempt to condescend to you guys, but it is one of those things where if you do the sport, it's one of the instruments that you will be familiar with as opposed to if you only watch the sport. That's just called the setup. I remember on Anderson Silva, people were saying what a great striker he was, and he was definitely very special. But I thought if you were going to put great into only one category for Anderson, I thought he was a great setup guy. Anderson would turn you to stone. Clayton Hires used to talk to me about this, said he was the Medusa. Anderson would get out there doing some movements that some people said was him being cocky or being arrogant. It wasn't meant to be at all. It was just meant as a distraction, but the distractions worked. Anderson start moving around in certain ways that you've never seen before, and you freeze and look at him, even for a millisecond. Boom, lights out. I thought Anderson was a great setup guy. But what that has to do, you're talking about flinching, you're talking about feinting, you're talking about getting a reaction. You're talking about spooking your opponent. Just for a millisecond, boom, boom, so you can get a couple of shots off. I feel that the guy who's more dynamic does a better job with that. I think that leans toward Giga. Guys, we are splitting hairs here. I don't know if I've ever given you an analysis where I've had to touch on so many intangibles. Generally, it'd be, well, if this guy can get inside, if this guy can keep it outside, if he could get to the clinch and get him to the ground. It's not like that. Neither one of these guys has a wrestling advantage over their opponent to the extent that this could turn in to 5 rounds of ground and pound. Absolutely not. They are likely to hit the floor. Both of them are likely to be on bottom at some point. Both of them are likely to be in the top position at some point. I think you've got a stand-up fight here. I'll go ahead and predict that for you. And even when we do see that groundwork, and we will see it, neither one of them has a discrepancy within their wrestling skills to put the other one there repeatedly or for all night long. So this is going to be a mess. This is going to be absolute chaos. This is one where the judges are going to need to be absolutely locked and focused in. Should we see it go 25 minutes, you're talking about a fight of the year candidate. Very hard to close your eyes and imagine this thing being anything other than chaotic and interesting and high-paced. But you do need to have a winner, and I don't think the stakes could ever be any higher. This fight is being looked at for the winner to come into the discussion of number 1 contendership. Whoever wins this fight, particularly if it's Giga, maybe more so if it's Giga, in fairness, will be 1 fight away from fighting for a championship. Now, if you're 1 fight away from fighting for a championship, that means you can fight for it today. If you were in that short list and you're in the talk and you're in that conversation, and don't forget what's going on at 145. Max is out. Volkanovski needs an opponent. Cejudo has offered, hasn't been accepted. The Zombie has offered, has not been accepted. I think the organization is taking a good look at this match right now. And that probably would be a little bit stronger for Giga. Probably. Just because Kattar ran into Max, I don't want that to work against him, but I know a lot of times it does. A lot of times we get that recency bias on what happened in the short term. I think it's being looked at, and there's no way that you can say it ahead of time. Because if this is the war that I think it's going to be, all of a sudden that gets delayed. If this goes out and somebody does something and you're out of there in 20 seconds, you're out of there in 3 minutes. It is very possible that this will be the one that draws in to Volkanovski. Now, I'm stating the obvious. We all know that. We're all looking at that. But I think that it is important that we at least identify it because there's a big conversation going right now. How good are Cejudo's chances? How good are Zombie's chances? Is it really just down to Zombie and Cejudo? I'm submitting for, I don't think it is. Now, there's plenty of things that have to happen, but that's the case in the sport all the time. You always have unknowns. You always have unforeseens. But if you take your oars out of the water, you sit back and you watch before you make a decision, this fight quite possibly, I'm taking Giga in it. That is my answer. I'm putting the hex on Giga. This fight is quite possibly for a number one contendership spot.